Welcome to the 6th episode in a Legendarium series about the life and reign of Edward Longshanks. In Part 6, The Invasion of Wales, we will talk about King Edward as a legal reformer and a conqueror. After one of the longest and most remarkable apprenticeships in English royal history, Edward Longshanks became King Edward I on August 19, 1274. After the celebrations, King Edward's servants began a survey of royal rights on a huge scale, comparable to the Domesday Book of William the Conqueror. What became known as the 100 Rolls inquiries centered on the hundreds or subdivisions of English shires, the loci of local government in feudal England. Between November 1274 and March 1275, every hundred in England received a visit from royal commissioners who put detailed questions to local juries about excessive demands from sheriffs, coroners, and bailiffs. These commissioners answered to King Edward's Chancellor, Robert Burnell. These men uncovered horrifying abuses of power that took place during the Second Barons' War. They included episodes of royal officials beating, torturing, and illegally imprisoning people to shake money out of them. One even revealed that the Sheriff of Essex plotted to release flying cockerels carrying incendiary bombs over London during the war. While not every wrongdoer could be punished as law and decency demanded, it conveyed to local officialdom that the new king would not tolerate corruption. After all, Edward wished to be Arthur. One of the greatest crazes of 13th century Europe was the legends of King Arthur. The real Arthur is an obscure figure from post-Roman Britain. Medieval imagination transformed him into a pious Christian king who fought against paganism and corruption, and built an empire that included the British Isles, Norway, Gaul, Iceland, Ireland, and the Balkan kingdom of Dacia, located in modern-day Romania. Arthurian knights became famed for their feats of chivalry, fabulous wardrobes, and witty ladies. Chivalry and romance abounded in this imagined knightly paradise. Furthermore, medieval people believed Arthur's kingdom to be historical fact. They further saw it as a lost golden age that they must try to emulate. High-born tourists even traveled to the supposed tombs of Arthurian notables like Lancelot and Guinevere. Indeed, King Edward went to Arthur's tomb at Glastonbury for his honeymoon and aspired to Arthurian grandeur and greatness. Of course, the Welsh never failed to point out that Arthur likely originated in Wales as a staunch opponent of English expansion. Indeed, Wales had been an ongoing problem for the Norman and Plantagenet dynasties since 1066. Politically, Wales was a bewildering mosaic of divided loyalties. In the south, Norman barons called the Marcher Lords ruled. Further north, the Welsh hero Llewellyn ap Gruffydd used the Second Barons' War to secure power for himself in the high mountains of Snowdonia. He supplied the rebel forces while creating a mighty position for himself in Wales. He even forced King Henry III to recognize him as lawful ruler of Wales, even as he extended his domain at the expense of Henry's Marcher Lords. Controlling or even pacifying Wales required immense resources, time, and political will. At first, King Edward might have accepted Llewellyn's autonomy if he paid lip service to King Edward's supremacy in Britain. Instead, Llewellyn's arrogance grew with his success. Llewellyn invaded English baronies in Shropshire and the Marches, angering some of King Edward's loyal allies from the Second Barons' War. At home, Llewellyn quarreled with his brothers. He imprisoned one, Owain, and exiled another, Defeed, to the English court. Despite repeated requests, Llewellyn refused to appear at King Edward's court to explain himself. In 1275, Llewellyn even entered negotiations to marry the daughter of the late Simon de Montfort, the rebel who nearly ended Plantagenet rule in England. Such an act would unite defiant Welsh princes with English rebels, something King Edward could not tolerate. Thoroughly angered, King Edward became determined to bring a man he saw as a rebellious vassal to heel. In July 1277, in the town of Worcester, Edward gathered one of the biggest armies ever seen in medieval Britain. The feudal levies summoned 1,000 armored knights, while veterans of the Second Barons' War and the Ninth Crusade assembled hundreds of thousands of crossbow bolts, French war horses, and requisition vehicles from across England. Royal mints produced silver pennies to pay thousands of conscripts. Several English shires like Cheshire, Derbyshire, and Shropshire supplied about 15,000 foot soldiers, including Welsh mercenaries and Gascon crossbowmen. A fleet of ships would supply the English from the sea and prevent a Welsh flight to Ireland. Teams of engineers would cut a path through North Wales, felling thick and silent woodland to create army roads. When the Edwardian army reached Flint, it built a huge timber fortress. Northern Welsh under Llewellyn could not meet Edward on the battlefield, so they melted back into the misty valleys and snow-dappled mountain peaks of their homeland. Edward advanced along the northern Welsh coast, marching slowly up the valleys of the Severn and the Dee. Leaving a chain of rising fortresses in his wake, Edward continued until he reached the mouth of the Conway River. Just off the coast on the island of Anglesey lay some of the most fertile soil in Wales, the breadbasket of Llewellyn's tribes. Thanks to ships provided by England's Cinque Ports, English Marines quickly took Anglesey. Lesser Welsh princes began making their peace with Edward Longshanks. Ringed in by hostile troops and threatened with starvation, Llewellyn sued for peace on November 9th. Though allowed to keep Gwynedd, he lost everything else. King Edward I celebrated Easter 1278 at Glastonbury Abbey, during which he opened the supposed tomb of Arthur and Guinevere. They found two skeletons side by side, each in a casket with images and arms painted on the sides. The following day, the king's men moved the bones to a new resting place in the abbey, made from black marble with two lions at each end and an effigy of Arthur at the top. The ceremony pulsed with messages about the new king. He took the anti-English King Arthur venerated by Welsh patriots from them. From now on, King Edward would be Arthur and Arthur would be English. By venerating the bones in Glastonbury, Arthuriana became part of Plantagenet family history. With his control over much of Wales all but uncontested, Edward Longshanks turned his attention to the law once more. He passed a sweeping program of reform, dealing with matters ranging from land tenure, elections to Parliament, heirs traveling England to investigate abuses of power, and stopping land grants to the church as a means of dodging taxes. England's new King Arthur was not just a soldier, but a reformer. That wraps things up for this episode of The Legendarium. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, press like. If you want to see more, press subscribe. And if you've got anything to say, let me know in the comments section. Thanks again for joining me, and I hope that you have a great rest of the day.